Next up, we're going to start drawing some animals. And I've said a few times that there are some things that I find difficult, and this is great because, if we found everything easy, wouldn't life be incredibly dull? And animals are one of those things which I find a little bit more challenging. And I'm going to show you how I therefore approach that and how I still have fun, because I do fill up pages with doodling and sketching animals, and I'll show you how I still have fun even though I don't feel as confident or as good perhaps at sketching them. And as ever, we can really simplify things. So let's start with a very, very simple idea. And if we take a circle and a circle, it doesn't look like much. Perhaps it's a snowman, perhaps it's a bit of abstract art. But we can pop a little triangle on there, and already perhaps you can see something emerging. Two more little triangles and a kind of rectangle. And then if we go back and we do our little restating, making the important lines bold, adding a little bit of texture, remember, that kind of character to our lines, and then tiny little details. And what have we got? A sort of cute little bird, haven't we? Tiny bit of hatching. And we can turn this bird into something with some 3D presence. And it really is that simple. We can then start playing around. So we move these shapes around a little bit. So what happens if this circle is kind of facing us, the beak or the triangle coming towards us? Then we've got the other circle, a little bit of texture straight away. And we'll just move that rectangle off to the side. Here's our little triangles at the bottom. And now we need two little eyes, don't we? And there we go. Same again. Perhaps this time we'll give him wings out to both sides, and we'll get that tail looking nice and dark so it looks like it's in shadow. And we could even pop them on a little string. And yes, these are incredibly simple, but they're also designed to be simple, designed to be easy, designed to get us started along the road. And we can then start moving these ideas on a bit. So suddenly we could break down a more complicated bird. For example, perhaps we find ourselves wanting to do an owl, and maybe this owl's wings are open. We can start with the kind of shape of their head, that's a circle. Then we've got this wing which is open and in flight, or sort of maybe pouncing down on something. And that's just a rectangle, really, a rectangle with this kind of serrated edge almost, isn't it? Just a rectangle with, again, that little bit of texture. We can then get the rest of the body. Got another wing coming out about here, something like that. Again, a little sort of serrated edge to it. And the rest of the body sweeps around, comes up under there, and we just fit in our little triangles for feet. And actually, again, very simple, but not an ineffective bird, is it? Give them a little sort of nose beak there. They've got very small beaks, and come back, restate those lines. Can join up the wing here. Can just get the key outlines feeling really nice and bold. And there we go. We can even do some hatching to pull apart. Yeah, this simple hatching pulls apart the wings from the body and shows that we're looking at slightly different structures. Give the belly a little bit of hatching, even give the feet some blackness. Now we've gone from, incredibly simple to still simple, but it looks more real, it looks more complicated. Let's have another bit of fun with something else which flies. What about a butterfly? So here we can start with little antennae coming up. And a butterfly, really, it's an insect, so it's just got a caterpillar-like body, I suppose, isn't it? 6 legs coming off. We can draw them or leave them. And then these beautiful flowing wings. And this is where we start thinking about gestural drawing in animals and the bit which makes things, again, the idea of making things easy. Unlike a lot of man-made things, animals, just like humans, really are filled with curves. They flow and float. So instead of trying to be perfect and get everything neat and symmetrical, we'll often find, you know what? They're not, they're imperfect, they are not symmetrical, they're in funny poses. And actually learning to just relax and draw and make little mistakes. So this isn't perfect, this isn't perfect, this isn't perfect. That's okay, that's a really key part of drawing. And starting with birds and their flowing, floating wings is a great way of doing that. And that enables us to become a bit looser, still seeing shapes, but seeing them in this loose and fun and fluid fashion. So let's draw some pets now. I love dogs, I've got a dog myself. And let's just start and imagine, what have we got for their shapes? Well, got a head, which is often basically a circle with a couple of loops attached for ears, of course. Then coming off the end, we've got just a little rectangle or a circle even, depending on, obviously the breed of the dog can feel very different. Underneath, we've got a big old, just flattened circle, ellipse, whatever you want to call it. And then we can give that tail a little loop. And that's a really simple dog, sort of looking away from us, pointing away from us. We can then play with these shapes a bit more. So maybe we get them, there's a circle for a head and the rectangle for a nose. We've got maybe little triangles for ears this time. And here he can be sort of sat. There's a big looping tail, little legs, and little feet in the front. Very simple, very doodly, very fun. A nice way for me, as someone who finds drawing animals a little more challenging, nice way for me to warm up and just loosen up into it. Another way, instead of trying to draw the whole animal, we can focus on bits we feel a little more perhaps confident about drawing. So we could, for example, zoom in. So let's find here, we got two little nostrils, we got that sort of characteristic cheeky little grin. Coming up, we've got two circles, and around this whole sort of face, we've got this sort of looping. It's almost a triangle. We could think of it as a circle and a circle again. And you know what happens if we pop on a couple of little ears, give them a little bit of character, give them a neck, and the same over here, a little ear. We can all draw these things in isolation. It's just the confidence to build them up, to sort of find these shapes all together that we sometimes lack and just stops us doing things. And there we go, a little portrait of a doggy. And we'll do one more dog, shall we? Let's give them again a slightly different shape. So we'll go for more sort of foxy ears. Perhaps this is let's go for something like a Shetland sheepdog for those who know their dogs, that kind of very pointy, like a little collie, but a little bit more fluffy. Get that lovely tongue in, just that tongue sticking out of the mouth. And we could even leave it there in terms of accuracy. We can then just loop things together, give them that kind of feel of flowing, frothing, flouncing fur out to the sides. Now come back, and if we want to just make this solidify more into a dog shape, come back and just remember we can regather those important lines. The nose, get a little black dot on it, the mouth, the tongue, and of course the eyes. Just really simple touches. And if we wanted a bit of hatching, maybe that's where we can come into the inside of the ears to give them a bit more shape. And we could do the same with these chappies as well if we wanted, or we can not, and we can leave them and keep them nice and sort of loose and flexible. This guy could even have a tongue as well. Why don't we get him having a little tongue sort of lolling out of his mouth? And there we go. Really simple ideas to craft little dogs. Now, at great risk of upsetting my dog, let's draw a cat. So cats are potentially complicated, but again, let's keep it simple. Why don't we have them lying down? So we can often just form a cat from a circle, kind of another circle, and then a bit coming out the back. Give them little paw here and here. If we want a little tail, we can have that appearing. And of course, some triangles at the top. Does it look like much at the moment? No, but what if we restate those important lines? What if we find those little features which really make a cat a cat? Again, got the little sort of down-turning mouth. And then we've got little eyes coming in somewhere about here. A little bit of tone into the ears, and then let this body, instead of being a hard circle, we can just make it feel more fluid and flowing. And again, like over here, we don't have to finish everything off. We can keep these other bits a little bit loose, a bit flowing. And even though we started by drawing just silly circles and circles and circles, you know what? This is still feeling like a cat, at least to me. Not perfect, not amazing, but we can draw it. We can draw anything. Let's try another cat, and this time we'll just go straight for it. So we're finding that circle with a little triangle sticking out the top. We can then find perhaps that we break down the nose and the mouth into separate little shapes, but get those characteristic cheeks in. Come down, find the swoop of the legs, that kind of gestural drawing, while still thinking about it as this simple shape. And then we come down the back, and maybe we get a loose sort of tail, little foot here. And before you know it, we can draw in little eyes, a little bit of hatching maybe for the ears. Maybe finish off the snout, the nose. And restate, re-embolden those lines which are working to really make this feel complete, make it feel purposeful. And also that sends those less good lines, because we're going to make mistakes, sends those less good lines into the distance, makes them feel less important. A little bit of hatching gives them shadow, gives them shape. There we go. Dogs, cats, birds. What else can we have a bit of fun with? Well, let's just imagine a few other animals, shall we? So let's get something really beginner friendly, so therefore suitable for me, like a whale. We can split that whale into really clear, simple ideas, can't we? We've got a big circle, we've got a kind of triangle, another triangle, little dot for an eye, and then bits of hatching to just show we've got the sort of, maybe it's a blue whale, white on, I think it's white on the bottom, isn't it, and blue on the top. Restate, again, those key lines, get that sort of lovely smooth outline this time, isn't it, for a whale? And we've suddenly got a whale appearing on our page. We did some sheep earlier, I think, in one of the very beginning lessons, just as a little example. And these are great fun for playing with simple textures, and you can suddenly create a little crowd of just simple shapes. There's a circle and a circle. Little legs. We can put some in the distance. We can have some facing away from us. Little just head appearing out the back of their very fluffy exterior. And easily create, yes, it's not, perfect portraits of sheep, but if you're drawing a little scene, if you're doing a little card for someone, perhaps, maybe a fun little Easter card or something like that, you could imagine during a farmyard scene, popping these sheep in, and this is how I do sheep in my real art. And if you look at fancy art, you'll find sheep are often not much more than a little white mark of the brush with a little black mark to give them a head. So, for me at least, perfectly acceptable ways of drawing sheep. And now it is your turn to continue to fill up that page. Just like we have with everything else in this class, you can now go forward with confidence, draw whatever animals you can think of. You can see I've added some bunnies, I've got a horse, here's a lizard. All we need to do is work out those simple shapes. What is the sort of minimum amount of information that we need to put on the page to make this work? Not to be perfect, but to make it work for us, to make it an enjoyable experience. And it doesn't need to be amazing. You can see as I sketch my little elephant and my giraffe. These are really loose, lively, fun, doodle-like sketches of animals. Here's a rhino, which didn't quite work as well as some of the others, but still it was an enjoyable experience. And we can play with absolute simplicity. Here's a little set of reindeers, all sort of pointing in slightly different directions. And I finish off my page, of course, with something as majestic as a little seahorse and some birds all twittering and tweeting on a telephone wire. Loads of little ideas. I'd love to see your creativity shine through. Have fun, break out those animals, whatever you'd like to draw, and just fill up your page.